Hi there, once again, wine number 12. Wow, time is fast passing. Fantastic red wine, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Aaron's Wine Talk. We have Nizza Riserva. Well, this was called before a Barbera d'Asti. It was called a Barbera d'Asti Superiore, meaning more alcohol in the wine. Today, Nizza is considered a separate appellation or denomination on its own. And today, Nizza is recognized as a DOCG, a Denominazione di Origine Controllata e Garantita, with the grapes being Barbera. We know Barbera from Alba, from Asti, but that is designated at DOC level, DOC. Nizza is typically only DOCG. And the grapes are coming from probably the best areas within Asti, and that is definitely Monferrato. If you Google Monferrato, you will find that the wine, the area is just typically amazing, very, very, very slopey. That gives very good aspect for the vines, southeast facing vines, so that they benefit the grapes from the gentle warmth of the morning rising sun. Plus, when you have slopes, there is better air circulation and better drainage of soil as you go up along the slope. The soil is very typical there, or very typical of Italian soils in the north part of Italy, which is argillo-calcare. Argilla is clay, calcareous soils with limestone soils. And this calcareous soils gives very good porosity for the drainage, for the roots go down to the subsoil and collect the nutrients for the wine. But the clay gives that mineral quality to the wine. It stores the water for this hot summer months in the area. And yes, the climate is typically very hot in summer and cold, very cold in winter. And we call that a continental climate. All this is affected by very, very natural microclimatic factors. Thank God in the north of Italy, there are what we call the lakes. Lago di Garda, Lago Maggiore, Lago di Como, they all affect North Italy. There are many other big lakes and rivers that pass through. And water is a heater. It's a natural heater. It stores the heat during the day, radiates it at night, and therefore continues the ripening process of Barbera grapes. Barbera doesn't have thick skins. Normally it is a medium thick skin, thin to medium, so the tannins are usually not that high. You'll be amazed that this wine is very high in tannin. And I was quite amazed to drink this time a 14.5% alcohol wine. To pick these grapes, you have to pick them at minimum 13.5%. If they don't achieve 13.5%, they cannot be picked. It is one of the rules of the Consorzio of Nizza, which is the Consorzio you can see here on the neck of the label of the bottle here. The DOCG denomination, yeah, and it's a voluntary association of producers that they decide on the rules of viticulture and vinification and also maturation of the wine. So the wine is labeled as Generale from the area of Nizza. It is considered as a DOCG, the denomination. It is a Riserva, notice the spelling, in Italy it is RIS, whilst in Spain it is RES. It basically means the same thing, but in Italy, it means that a normal Nizza will normally age for 18 months before being sold to the public. And then a Riserva is always given an additional 12 months. Could be oak and bottle. So in all, this wine ages for minimum 30 months before being sold to the general public. And that is why this is a vintage 2015. It is 5 years old, so probably maximum it was released 2 years ago. Still fantastic. Imported by Picotaya. Thank to Trevor for this style of wine. It is just simply amazing. And it is imported from Bersano winery. And Bersano make their entry-level wines, mid-priced wines, but they also make these fantastic high-priced styles. Every winery has this range, ladies and gentlemen. Inexpensive, mid-priced, high-priced, premium, and also super premium, in order to reach the whole general public, because not every person has the same average spending power. So it depends obviously on how much money you would want to spend. This is considered like the high price, not the premium price, a high price. So it's normally like 18 euros a bottle, 16, 15 euros a bottle. Still fantastic value for money, in my opinion. I don't think I've ever tasted a Barbera which I can say is full-bodied. Yes, full-bodied Barbera. Never heard of that. But with good quality viticulture and vinification, you can make fantastic styles. Yes, and how do they do that? We already mentioned the climate, the soil. In viticulture, the yield is extremely low here, lower than normal Barbera. So obviously the concentration of fruit is much higher. And the picking of the grape, the harvest of these grapes, is done in the first 15 days of October. So we have quite a late harvest time in order to reach 14.5% level of alcohol. This wine, yes, is served at 14.5, and that is quite a high level of alcohol. That should burn on the palate. Believe me, ladies and gentlemen, this wine does not burn at all. It is totally fully integrated. We will see about that. Before we pass on the tasting, maturation. The maturation process is done for 30 months, we said, but 6 months of those is in tonneaus. A tonneau are huge, large barrels. In Italian, they call them botte, but they are French large barrels, which normally come from Bordeaux, and they have a capacity of 4 barriques, which is a capacity total of 900 liters. And so when the oak is very, very large, the amount of oak affection to the wine will be minimal than a smaller barrel. We call it the surface ratio effect. And therefore, the winemaker did not want the wine to have an overpowering of oak. And I do agree with this Italian typical style of mentality, because you want to extract the flavors of the grape, of Barbera, but also the flavors of Piemonte. The region is northwest Italy, the region of big area of Piemonte, where obviously the capital is Turin. And then in south part of Turin, you will have the area of the provincia of Asti, where in Asti you have a subzone called Nizza, with villages like Monferrato. And this is always a DOCG style of wine. And besides 6 months in Tonneau, you have also 6 months in Slovenian oak. Yes, Italians typically import Slovenian oak. It has an affection of oak, but only 6 months, so the affection will be very minimal. And then the other 18 months will be done in the bottle. Yes, this wine needs bottle aging. And with bottle aging, you can soften the tannins on the palate. But believe me, 18 months is still not enough. You need much more years in order to soften these high levels of tannin on the palate. We always store wine, we said, that's very important temperature, which is cellar temperature at 15 degrees, cool and constant, which is January to December, and never you have a temperature fluctuation. But when you come to serve the wine, you should take out the wine from the cellar. The temperature will go up slowly, and let it go up to 18 degrees. You can do that by assessing it with a thermometer. You put a thermometer inside before you drink, before you consume, or you put a thermometer on the bottle, because they do exist, and it can assess the temperature of that wine. Always stored on its side so that the cork remains moist. If not, the cork will dry and it will oxidize the wine. And you don't want to drink an oxidized wine. Yeah. So, let us examine this wine on appearance, nose and palate. I prepared a white paper for you because, believe me, if you want to see a deep colored wine like this, you need a white background. Well, I must say that Barbera doesn't have thick skins. This wine is deep. It should be a pale to medium intensity. This wine is a deep intensity, so in a blind tasting session, it will be very hard to discover that this wine is a Barbera. 100% Barbera, and no other grapes are mixed with this variety. So really, the winemaker wants to extract this indigenous grape of Italy, growing in Piemonte, from this beautiful area of Nizza. Fantastic. I thank Trevor for this, because I think this was my first time I've tasted a Nizza with my 21 years of experience in wine. And I think that the producer of Bersano, made a fantastic job in this 2015. So we have a deep color that shows that this wine can age really, really well. It's still ruby. Purple has gone, but with aging in oak, it will change even to garnet, but still not garnet yet. It still needs many years in the bottle in order to age. This is still very, very young, but very deep and even opaque, much more deeper than deep. And that means that the wine is typically very concentrated and it's going to be very full bodied. Normally, acidity will be quite on the low side, but not this wine. Italian wines have this typical mentality, like the French. They know how to keep the acidity level in the wine, and that is thanks to their natural climate and habitats, the topography of the area. They just literally know how to preserve that level of acidity because acidity is important in wine. It keeps its freshness and longevity to it. The legs are extremely long and thick. That represents 14.5% alcohol. Wow. I would never say that this wine is a Barbera. And legs are very highly tinted. Highly tinted legs will indicate a high level of alcohol. The producer calls it Generale. Well, it is a general in my opinion. I wonder why. What was the motive of calling it Generale? But I think it really deserves that such a name. It is something which is literally on top. And Bersano wanted to create something which is good value for money and still at the top level quality. On the nose, immediately we have a very quite pronounced intensity, the typical aroma and terroir of Italian red wines, ladies and gentlemen, and that is herbal aromas. You can smell herbs, thyme, rosemary, sage. They are so beautiful in all red and even white wines of Italy. They are very, very typical, and that is what will tell me that this wine is Italian. But to say the grape, to guess the grape, is very, very hard. Well, let's say you have the presence of leather. And leather is an animal character, and that is a sign of complexity. So leather, meat, game, it's already developing it, but it will develop much more tertiary characteristics for another 10 to 15 years to go. Yes, this wine can go much more than 10 years in the bottle because of that sign of an animal character. I get mushrooms, wet leaves, forest floor, truffles, very typical within Piemonte. Imagine this wine to eat with a truffle dish or a meat dish accompanied with shavings of truffles. You'll have a fantastic style. Or a nice pasta dish with shavings of truffles, truffle in the wine, truffle in the dish, and you have the umami coming in. Yes, truffle and mushrooms and leather are umami in style. This has all the fruits you can imagine, both red and black. Strawberry, cherry, raspberry, blackcurrants, blackberry, blueberry, call it what you want. It has that slight jammy hint. That's because of the late harvest from the 1st to the 15th of October, but we really didn't destroy the style. Licorice in style. Yes. Amazing on the fruit character. So it's got fruit, it's got tertiary, it's primary, it's tertiary aromas, and the secondary of oak, smokiness, toast. The hints of vanilla sweet spices coming in. It is not overpowering at all. It is totally in balance, and you can smell the herbal mineral qualities coming out. This wine is subjected to malolactic fermentation, so you get the buttery characteristics in the wine, so it's giving it a beautiful, creamy, textured style. Wow, what a complex wine. On the palate, I get the animal style, the meat, the game, the leather. It's amazing. It's dry, high in acidity, extremely high, and normally this would be a low acidic wine. Not really this. It's going to keep its freshness for a long time. Full bodied, pronounced intensity, same as nose, the flavors, and that long finish of mushrooms, umami that linger on the palate. I think this wine is literally outstanding from Nizza, from a Barbera style of wine. This was probably one of my best Barberas I've ever drunk. I tend not to drink these wines before, so all these wines are the first time that I've drunk them. And I wanted to give you also something different, not always the same styles of wine. So this is the intention of this wine talk, yeah, and also as an education part for you to learn on wine and food, service temperatures, the viticulture, the vivification. There's so much into wine, yeah. Food match red meat. The meat, the protein will soften the tannins on the palate. The tannins are very high, but they're soft, they're ripe, they need time to develop. They're quite earthy in style, and leathery characteristics also gives it so much justice. I think this wine can age minimum 10 to 15 years. 15 years, it should be okay. So you have in all till 2030. So 10 years is not bad. Even probably another 5 can go. The level of tannin, acidity, and fruit is so high. It keeps on going. The alcohol doesn't burn. Nothing at all. 14.5. And I think this wine is just simply superb. I hope you enjoyed wine number 11. Thank you, Trevor from Picotaya. We'll go on very soon to wine number 12. Thank you very much.